So remember when I told you guys how bad white fragility is for kids, teaching white fragility? Well, I was pretty generic in my comments. I said it's bad for kids. It amounts to child abuse to teach this belief. It's a belief. There's nothing factual behind it. But I wasn't able to be specific with you as far as how it affects children of color specifically. And I think it's important for us to have that conversation because so often the argument is this will help. This will reduce racism. This will help children of color. This will help them feel more included. This will help them feel safer, safer at school if the children who are not of color are taught about their white fragility, and if the children of color are taught that there is such a thing as white fragility. Well, no, that's not true. I mean, I knew that wasn't true, but I really wasn't able to just say it and give you evidence until now. So here, it's an opinion piece. So again, I say evidence in quotes, but let's go through this piece in the New York Post from Rav Aurora because I think it will help shed some light on why it specifically is bad for these children and how it affects them. So let's go through it. He says, last month, my 8-year-old sister came home from school deflated and torn. She told me that a young boy in her class was making fun of her because of her skin color, comparing her brown skin to fecal matter. I remembered being mocked and tormented for the very same reason in elementary school, growing up in a nearly all-white area in Western Canada. Many of my fellow Indian immigrants have experienced it. When she asked me what was wrong with having brown skin, I told her nothing. Your skin color doesn't define who you are. She asked me how white people are different from her, and I told her they're not. No skin color is worse or better than any other. Discriminating against people based on race is simply wrong. Thankfully, her school took the incident seriously, and the boy ended up writing a letter of apology to my sister, saying he was sorry for being mean and that he will work harder at being a better friend. I felt happy that the system had done its job in combating racism. But then in that same week, my 15-year-old brother told me he is learning about the concept of systemic racism in his English class. His teacher instructed her students that white people in our society are privileged and people of color are marginalized and disadvantaged. She went on to divide the class into groups and told them to discuss white fragility, the feeling of discomfort white people experience when forced to confront racial inequality. But the lesson actually left my brother, one of 5 people of color in his class, feeling awkward and discomforted. What he'd been raised to see as trivial and unimportant trait, the color of his skin, was suddenly spotlighted and politically charged, and all his white classmates were implicitly being told to see him as different from them, and vice versa. In the wake of protests after the police killing of George Floyd, the influence of Robin DiAngelo's 2018 book White Fragility has spread far and wide. It has dominated Amazon and New York Times bestseller lists. It has been discussed on late-night TV and workplace diversity seminars and now even in children's classrooms. Seattle Public Schools held training for teachers in which they were told the U.S. is a race-based white supremacist society and white teachers must bankrupt their privilege in acknowledgement of their thieved inheritance, according to documents recently obtained by journalist Christopher Rufo. We profiled that on this channel. This summer, KIPP Schools, a network of free, open enrollment college prep schools in low-income communities in America, abandoned their classic slogan, work hard, be nice, because it supports the illusion of meritocracy, which is not going to dismantle systemic racism. Last November, Megyn Kelly revealed that she is pulling her kids from their private Upper West Side school after a letter distributed to faculty members stated there is a killer cop sitting in every school where white children learn. These so-called anti-racist teachings have made their way to my brother's classroom in the small British Columbia town of Chilliwack, population 83,000. I covered Megyn Kelly's situation, and here we are talking about British Columbia. So if you thought this was something specific to the urban areas of New York, Atlanta, in the case of KIPP, New Orleans, and California, Seattle, etc., you're incorrect. You assumed incorrectly. The most troubling aspect of the white fragility doctrine and the broader anti-racist movement is that race is considered the defining feature of human existence. I talked about this, how once you start assigning an identity to a child, they become very self-conscious of that. It's not what they chose, it's what you have put upon them. And if it isn't what they would have chosen or something they were specifically told not to choose to define their identity, perhaps by parents, well-meaning siblings, etc., now there's a conflict. You've created a conflict and you've gotten between them and other people who love them. So there are all kinds of dimensions to this that are wrong. The The opening words of D'Angelo's book encapsulate her reductionist philosophy. I'm a white woman, D'Angelo seems to see the world through an anachronistic black and white television set from the 1940s. Whites and minorities live in two separate, irreconcilable dimensions. Complexity and nuance are alien concepts. The best whites can do is become baptized in D'Angelo's anti-racist program of eternal guilt and atonement. D'Angelo paints Western society as more akin to the racial caste system in India, which people I know who are Indian have told me is insulting, deeply insulting to them, by the way, in which darker skinned people are rendered untouchable and light skinned people are seen as superior Brahmins rather than one of the most inclusive and progressive cultures on earth. Her belief that individualism, objectivity, and rationalism are pillars of whiteness is functionally indistinguishable from a Ku Klux Klan member's white supremacist handbook. Both progressive anti-racists and those we would conventionally define as racist see people as members of racial tribes rather than as individuals with unique circumstances, values, and merits. This is what I've been saying forever on this channel, that this is white supremacy repackaged to look helpful and to make people like D'Angelo feel better about what are probably some deeply racist views that she harbors and doesn't want to deal with. So she's projecting it out onto everyone. She's assuming everyone thinks as she does. But what she's announcing is that she's a racist. One of the worst things you can tell young people of color is that they are fundamentally different from their white counterparts. They are powerless victims in a system that is built to limit their success. I was amazed to hear my own brother, despite growing up incredibly privileged with a successful business owner father, ask me how minorities are oppressed in our society. Martin Luther King once wrote that the important thing about a man is not the color of his skin or the texture of his hair, but the texture and quality of his soul. By today's perverse standards, King's sentiment would be considered racist in itself, antithetical to the progressive pursuit of racial justice. But until we reroute to a more humanistic approach, grounded in respect for the common qualities that bind us all, we will continue to be stratified along racial lines, and my brother and my sister will not grow up believing that they are equal members of society, that they can fully flourish within it. And that, my friends, is the biggest reason I oppose this. This harms children. Unless somebody steps in and, like this brother, and affirms or reaffirms for these children that their skin color does not define them, whether they are white or not white, they will begin to internalize that and start to define who they are around, starting at skin level, skin deep, and moving on from there. And in the case of a white child, because they're told their whiteness is bad and everything about them and their heritage and their family, everything is inherently racist and evil. I mean, we consider racism evil in our culture, not just bad, evil. And even I would agree with that. It's an evil. There's nothing remotely good about racism. So when you tell somebody you're racist or you're inherently racist, you're saying you're inherently evil, when good and evil run through all of us, and we actually don't have to fight it tooth and nail every single day. For most of us, it's just not a daily battle. So to tell somebody they are inherently evil and they must battle against it is truly damaging. So I wanted to share this with you and give you something to think about. If this is happening in your child's school, you need to fight back against it. I would recommend simply leaving, because you, one parent, or even if you get a group of people together, are unlikely to turn the tide. This has taken hold. She's a bestseller. That book is being handed out like candy to teachers. They're being ordered to read it. They are being given curriculum to teach in the classroom. And it's a big business. People are not going to simply do away with it. Just like other things that have become big business with regard to social justice. You're now not only fighting the bad idea, you're fighting all the other bad ideas that have sprung from it, many of which are now quite profitable for a lot of people, including the media. So that's what I wanted to bring to you today. It's just terrible. I don't even understand. Well, actually, I do understand, because James Lindsay explained it very well, that these people live in a pseudo-reality. Please go watch the video about that, because it's essential that you understand what James is talking about. I prefer you read the article, but watch the video first. It will help give you the highlight reel of the article, and then I hope you will go read the article in its entirety, share it with everyone you know, because that will help you understand why. I just asked the question, but I already know the answer. People who support this, who aren't grifting, they're not making money off it, are living in a pseudo-reality. They have already moved into that pseudo-reality, and in order to remain there, in order to not feel completely uncomfortable with this decision they've made, or with their feelings that they must be there, either to keep their job, keep their friends, keep their relationship, whatever it is, they have to also adopt a pseudo-logic and a pseudo-morality. And as I've just explained to you, this is obviously a pseudo-morality when you tell somebody that it is moral to be a racist, when we know that being a racist is immoral, and that all you have to do is flip the script so the people you're persecuting or the people you say are the bad color are the white people. It doesn't work like that. It's still an evil. Looking at people as their skin color is still wrong, especially when you do it with children. Now it's evil on steroids because these are impressionable young minds, young hearts, young souls. And if you're a teacher doing this, shame on you. I would feel sorry for you, but for the fact that you're harming children. So no, I don't. That's it. That's the video for today. If you have people in your midst who are still not getting it or who think you're crazy for challenging white fragility, especially in the classroom, please explain this to them. Please share this with them. And I hope they understand. And I hope they're not subjecting their children to this. And worst of all, telling their own children that they're racist. I saw a picture of a little girl on Facebook or Instagram where her mother had made her hold a sign saying, I am racist. I have white privilege. Little girl, she couldn't have been older than 5. And it just broke my heart. It broke my heart. It's just terrible. It breaks my heart as much as seeing little helpless kindergartners with their fists in the air talking about Black Lives Matter as if anyone said they didn't. Imagine teaching a 6 or 7-year-old they need to fight and scream Black Lives Matter. The implication is someone out there says they don't. Someone out there wants to hurt you, and not just hurt you, take your life. That is not only a lie, it's verbal abuse to that child. And then telling these kids that their white counterparts are different and that they are always going to be victims of those people is also damaging. So see if you can explain that one. And thanks for watching. If you like this video, please share, comment, subscribe to the channel, and that's the video.